Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jen. I'm here in Central Florida. It's the very end of May and I'm going to walk you through my 8-week-long process of growing sweet potato slips. I'll show you 2 different methods of growing sweet potato slips, and at the very end I'm going to show you why I'm going to use none of them in the future. Hit that like and subscribe button and let's get into it. So I'm starting with sweet potatoes from the store. I got these at Costco about a month ago. I have 4 of them, so I guess I'll put 3 in here and 1 in the mason jar. Let's start with the mason jar option. I have 4 skewers here. I'm going to attempt to stab the sweet potato like 2 going the same direction and then 2 going this way like an X to help stabilize it on the top of the mason jar. And I should be changing this water on a weekly basis. All right, it looks like I'm done with this. This is just a seed starting tray. I am using Miracle-Gro seed starting potting mix. I'm gonna go get the hose and add a little moisture. Now I'm just gonna take my sweet potatoes and put them in just so they hit the bottom. So I can feel that the bottom of the sweet potato is touching the bottom of the tray and the soil is about the height of the middle of the potato. So what I plan to do is leave both of these out on my lanai. I'm gonna keep them well watered. This one's gonna get new water approximately once a week. What I'm hoping to see is sprouts grow out of all the potatoes. And then once those sprouts are about 4 to 6 inches long, maybe a little bit longer, I'll cut them off the potato and we'll put them in a glass jar with water until roots form. Once those roots form, that's when we have a slip that we can use for planting sweet potatoes. Today is April 12th, 10 days after I started the mason jar experiment, and you can see there's some roots. It's starting to form some roots. Let's get a better view. Yep, you can see it there. You can see it there. So in 10 days I had roots. Look, we've already got sprouts coming up. So it looks like we have our very first sprout that's long enough. I would say this is over 6 inches long. And so I'm ready to cut it off and put it in its own mason jar of water for the next step in which this grows roots of its own. I'm gonna cut it off right, oh my gosh. Look what's happening. Oh my gosh. I gotta change the camera angle. So the internet told me that this sweet potato would grow roots down into the soil and then sprouts would come up off of it. But I think this is the potato where there was a little nub of a sprout before I even planted it, and I guess I must have oriented it so that that sprout was under the soil. And look what happened. I swear, this is like a new hack because I think I just figured out how to expedite this whole slip growing process. Ooh. So I lifted this up and sure enough, there's a root coming off of the sweet potato. And then over here is, oh my gosh, it's like, I think the sweet potatoes are already growing under there. I don't know what's gonna happen when I pull it up.
Do not.
This is what needs to go in my garden. Look, the sprout itself already has roots. Look at all those roots. Oh my gosh. Today is April 18th, and I think I started this process. I'll have to go back and look. I think it was like April 4th or something like that. So literally 2 weeks. So now I guess the pressure's on for me to find a spot in the garden to plant it. You want to go find a spot in the garden?
Yeah, let's get it.
Okay, so before we go find a spot in the garden, I'm going to take this sweet potato with the root and put it back in this soil.
Can I do it, please?
Yeah, just set it down. We want to make sure this root is covered by the soil, okay? We're going to press that soil up against it.
The leg of my hands.
I'm so excited about this. So. Oh my gosh. We planted our first sweet potatoes just now. Today is April 24th. We're just now getting some sprouts on the mason jar. Today is May 14th, and I want to show you something really cool that's happening with my sweet potato slips that I'm trying to grow. This is the mason jar method, and what I've noticed is that if I fill up the water a little bit too high so that it's covering one of the sprouts, the sprout will grow roots right there on the potato. Let me show you. Do you see that one right there? It's growing sprouts. Here, I can take it out of the water just for a second. I'm talking about this sprout right here. It's growing roots all by itself. It's connected to the sprout. So it's almost like I'm gonna be able to skip a step with this one. But these ones don't have roots because they're totally out of the water all the time. So I thought that was really interesting. Seems like I can maybe manipulate this method and skip a step. I have been trying to keep the water level high so that I can keep the roots right there under water. Now the other thing I want to show you is this one in the soil. This little purple piece right here is a sprout that's completely out of the soil. There's no roots growing on the sprout at all. But what I'm going to try to do right now is add the potting soil and cover up the bottom part of that sprout and see if it'll grow roots, and I can expedite this process a little bit more. I'm not covering the sprout completely, just trying to cover that bottom part, and I'm going to get the soil nice and wet too. We'll check back in a couple weeks and see what's happening. Today is May 21st, and I'm here with another update on sweet potato slips. This is the mason jar method, and you can see I'm like overdue on clipping off some of the seedlings that have started. This one is really interesting because it's like the sprout was underneath the water a little bit, and all these roots grew. So I think I'm going to be able to just break this off. I have shears if I need them. Yeah, I just pulled it right off the sweet potato. And it looks like I'll be able to just put this directly in the garden. I've got a spot back here in the garden. I'm just going to make a hole and put my sweet potato slip in it. Making sure to bury the roots. And there we have it. I planted the slip from the mason jar method. Now we're going to go back over there to the mason jar, and there's some that don't have roots, so I'm going to snip those off and put them in their own mason jar and help them grow roots. Back at the mason jar, you can see this slip right here is, well, first of all, I'm going to put any of these roots back in the water, fix that. Now I'm going to take the longest one right here, clip it off right where it joins the sweet potato, and I'm going to plop it in to its own mason jar of water. I'm going to pick off this bottom leaf right here just to prevent any of the leaves from being underwater. Let's see if that works. And now this will grow roots, and then I'll plant it in the ground. So since I've been starting the sweet potato slips, I've been listening to the comments that some of my subscribers have made on some previous videos, and it seems I'm overcomplicating it for Florida. And all we got to do is take a sweet potato from the store, stick it in the ground, and it will grow. It's one of the easiest crops to grow in Florida, so I'm going to take this one that's already sprouted. Looks like I actually have a couple that are sprouted straight from the store. This is a bag of Costco sweet potatoes. So let's go stick it in the ground, and we'll see how long until we get a nice vine. All right, we're on the side of my house in a mulch bed that isn't really doing anything. I'm just gonna dig a hole. It's really sandy soil. See if we can grow something in Oh my gosh, I should show you on the camera how sandy this soil is. All right, digging a hole for my sweet potato in what looks like sand. We'll see. Just gonna try something in the soil that I've got in my yard. I'm gonna try to leave that sprout uncovered. See what happens. You can see that tiny little purple sprout right there. We'll find out. Today is May 29th, and I finally have a sprout from the mason jar method that was put in its own mason jar of water and finally has roots. I might want a little bit more roots before I transplant it, but that is what I'm calling done. Now let me show you a few interesting things that happened in the soil method. This right here is the sweet potato that started out with the slightest little sprout from the grocery store, and I've already clipped one off and transplanted it. And this one most recently was growing above the soil, but while it was really small, I ended up covering it with some soil to see if I could shortcut it and have it grow roots right away. So let's see how that worked. It looks like it did exactly what I wanted it to do, which is grow roots itself instead of the sweet potato. So the sweet potato is clean, no roots right off the sweet potato, and the slip now has roots. So that's one way you could do it. This sweet potato had no sprouts throughout the entire process. There was a point in time when my 2-year-old lifted it up and I could hear it like rip off roots. So I really don't know what's happening underneath. The sweet potato itself is like totally dissolved, which I know happens when it's like producing other potatoes underneath. I don't know. It doesn't look good. It just looks like a lot of bugs, actually. Looks pretty gross. No roots or anything, and just like a decomposing sweet potato. And nothing in the soil. So I guess I would call that a failure. I'm going to blame that one on my 2-year-old who lifted it up and stopped all progress. This one, nobody lifted it up through the whole thing, and I am noticing it's starting to decompose too. And I can see the roots are growing, but there's mold under there too. No sprouts at all on the whole thing. Maybe it would have created sprouts, I don't know. But it looks pretty gross. Now about a week ago, I just took a sprouted sweet potato from the grocery store and stuck it in the ground. I heard from a few subscribers that it was really unnecessary to do the whole slip process, and you could just throw a sprouted sweet potato in the ground, and that's exactly what I did in the sandy soil right next to my house. Let's go see what it's doing. Okay, I'm over here on the very side of my house. This is right where I planted it, like maybe a week ago. It just had one little sprout when I started. Now you can see several sprouts coming up. They're all purple and it looks really healthy. Just from a sprouted sweet potato put directly in the ground. Let's check out how some of those transplants are doing. Right here is where I transplanted the first sweet potato slip, and it is growing up the fence. In this square right here is where I did another one, and you can see, look up the fence, it's vining up the fence really well. And there's the most recent transplant starting to get big enough to climb. I'm gonna draw some conclusions about this whole process before I get to the harvest stage, but it's probably safe enough because the plants are growing. In my opinion, in this area, it's totally unnecessary to go through the slip process. Just get some sweet potatoes from the store, let them sprout in your pantry, and put them in the ground. How easy is that? If you're new here, you may not know, but I only have like probably a 1.5 years worth of gardening experience. And so I still have to do some research about new crops. And it's interesting to me that you can go and do all the research you want about growing sweet potatoes, but if you didn't say in Florida, or if you made the mistake of saying, how do I grow a sweet potato slip, you're just gonna miss the part of the internet that says don't use slips. So don't make the same mistake I did when you're doing research. and try to, cover all your bases. Thankfully, I have some subscribers that filled me in on how slips are just unnecessary in Florida, and we can just put the sweet potato in the ground. I'd be curious to know if that's the case in other parts of the country too. So if you've tried this before and you don't live in Florida, I'd love to hear your experience. Put a comment below. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, guys.